Dinar Insights, your source for informed analysis and real-world perspective on the complex movements within global currency markets, with a dedicated focus on the Iraqi dinar, alongside broader discussions surrounding major currency revaluation events worldwide. We are here to look beyond the rumors and dive into the factual developments shaping the future of international finance, bringing you essential context on the Iraqi economy. The conversation around the Dinar, IQD, has reached a renewed intensity as we approach 2025, marking what many observers see as a pivotal moment. For years, the dinar's future has been a subject of speculative interest, but what distinguishes the current period is the shift from purely internet-driven narratives to discussions grounded in observable policy changes and tangible economic reforms within Iraq itself. This momentum has drawn considerable attention to physical currency holdings, particularly the often overlooked 25,000 Iraqi dinars notes that individuals may possess, sometimes acquired years ago for minimal cost and since filed away or nearly forgotten. The potential for these notes to carry substantial future value, should a comprehensive mix of political stability and profound economic restructuring take hold in Iraq, is what currently fuels the most compelling dialogues. While it is an absolute certainty that no outcome in currency speculation is ever guaranteed, the difference in 2025 is the emerging convergence of factors. It is no longer solely about hopeful rumors, it is increasingly tied to clear, documented actions taken by the Iraqi government, central bank policy adjustments, and strengthening international financial engagements. This alignment demands serious consideration from anyone tracking the Iraqi dinar's trajectory. The question of why 2025 has become the focal point for intense renewed interest in a potential Iraqi dinar revaluation is answered by examining a powerful convergence of domestic and global developments. Over the past year, Iraq has demonstrably increased its commitment to a long-term economic reform agenda, moving beyond crisis management toward structural modernization. These critical efforts include noticeable strides in enhancing institutional transparency, expanding meaningful bilateral and international trade discussions, and fostering more constructive, trust-building relationships with global bodies and partner nations. Collectively, these actions have successfully reignited speculation that Iraq may be actively setting the stage for a significant upward adjustment or reform of its national currency's exchange rate mechanism. Simultaneously, discussions within various financial forums, investor networks, and social media groups have intensified, shifting focus. The conversation is migrating away from vague predictions toward more specific analysis of financial restructuring initiatives, explicit changes in central bank policy, and the increased coordination between Baghdad and major international financial institutions. While maintaining caution is perpetually necessary, the alignment of demonstrable economic movement, policy reform, and intensified public speculation is a complex synergy that is difficult for serious observers to dismiss. The 25,000 Iraqi dinars note has, by its nature, become a central focus within these speculative conversations. Recognizable for its distinct design and rich cultural imagery, this particular denomination symbolizes more than merely its aesthetic appeal. It represents significant potential leverage within any future revaluation scenario. The simple logic is that larger currency denominations inherently possess greater theoretical upside potential if and when a currency's foundational value increases. Even a modest, managed increase in the dinar's international exchange rate could translate into a substantial, multi-fold impact on the portfolio value for long-term holders of these larger notes. Consider the practical mathematics that are frequently discussed among those following the market closely. A note that might have been purchased historically for a relatively small sum, in the vicinity of $20 to $25 US dollars, could theoretically experience an extraordinary rise in value should the dinar's rate undergo a major upward adjustment. Speculation regarding the potential rates varies widely, ranging from a conservative $1 per dinar to much higher figures such as $3 or even more aggressive projections. At a hypothetical rate of $1 per dinar, a single 25,000 Iraqi dinars note would instantaneously be worth $25,000. Should the rate move to $3 per dinar, that same figure would jump to $75,000. Some of the most optimistic projections even suggest a rate of $4 per dinar, which would astonishingly translate into a value of $100,000 for just one note. While figures this dramatic understandably generate significant skepticism and must be treated as pure speculation, those who support a cautious optimism often point toward historical context as a basis for their arguments. Before decades of regional instability and conflict impacted the nation's economy, the Iraqi dinar historically traded at an exchange rate that was well above $3 against the US dollar. Although the global and regional economic conditions today are dramatically different from those earlier periods, Iraq's enormous natural resource base, particularly its vast proven oil reserves, provides a resilient, powerful foundation for sustained future economic growth. If the trajectory of institutional reforms continues, and if Iraq's international economic integration strengthens decisively, many analysts believe that a significantly higher currency valuation could eventually be supported by underlying economic fundamentals. This is the core thesis driving the long-term optimism, that the reforms are restoring the economic capacity needed to sustain a stronger currency. Several key, measurable developments are strongly contributing to the atmosphere of optimism centered around the 2025 outlook. Iraq has demonstrated quantifiable progress in stabilizing its macroeconomic environment, successfully managing the often volatile inflation rate, and proactively implementing systemic reforms specifically designed to rebuild global financial credibility. Furthermore, the country has significantly deepened its working relationships with powerful international financial organizations, which is a clear institutional signal of a genuine desire for deeper, more reliable integration into the structured global economic system. Central bank reforms in particular carry enormous significance for those focused on the currency's future. The Central Bank of Iraq has been actively engaged in efforts to enhance both the independence and governance structures of its monetary institutions, while simultaneously increasing transparency in its monetary policy decisions and reporting. There is also increasing, tangible discussion about taking concrete steps to make the dinar a more accessible and tradable instrument within global foreign exchange (Forex) markets. This is an essential step, as increased tradability and liquidity could dramatically boost international confidence and market functionality for the currency. While the discussion is marked by optimism, a healthy, necessary skepticism must always remain at the forefront. The DOMI end of currency speculation is inherently fraught with risks, and an attitude of blind, unfounded optimism can be financially perilous. Nonetheless, historical examples from other nations offer powerful case studies worthy of careful consideration. The Kuwaiti dinar, for instance, experienced a total collapse and loss of value during the Gulf War. But through disciplined post-conflict rebuilding and strong policy decisions, it later staged a remarkable recovery to reclaim its status as one of the world's highest-valued currencies. While Iraq's complex situation is not identical to that of Kuwait, the precedent emphatically demonstrates that profound, sustained economic and financial recovery is absolutely possible following a major national crisis. Even in the absence of a sudden, dramatic revaluation event, many analysts frequently discuss the alternative possibility of a gradual appreciation of the dinar's value, perhaps through a carefully managed float or eventually a completely free-floating exchange regime. Such a scenario would still substantially reward long-term holders who are prepared to endure inevitable periods of market volatility and political uncertainty with discipline and strategic patience. Regardless of the mechanism of change, navigating these speculative opportunities requires a foundation of patience, continuous education, and clear strategic thinking. It is also crucial to address the pervasive, darker undercurrent that exists in this space. Scams and fraudulent schemes have historically targeted hopeful investors, often making impossible to keep promises of guaranteed, extraordinary exchange rates, exclusive access to insider exchanges, or secret redemption opportunities. These offers should be universally viewed with extreme caution and avoided without exception, as they are classic hallmarks of financial manipulation. Legitimate major FINA. NCL events are never reliant upon unsolicited emails, secret invitations, or unverified private intermediaries. Any future official exchange process for the dinar would almost certainly involve established, regulated financial institutions, stringent verification procedures, and extensive regulatory oversight, operating under public frameworks. Preparation is a non-negotiable key to managing potential future events. Should a revaluation or official currency adjustment occur, it will likely involve necessary procedures such as the authentication of physical notes, detailed documentation of the original purchase history, and adherence to potential domestic and international tax reporting requirements. The proactive effort of gathering all receipts, invoices, and other proof of acquisition now can prevent significant complications and delays in the future, simultaneously ensuring that any physical notes held are genuinely authentic and maintained in excellent, undamaged condition is equally important to safeguard their value. Staying continuously informed through highly credible financial news sources is absolutely essential for making rational decisions. This means monitoring official direct statements from the Central Bank of Iraq, reading reputable global financial publications, and consulting with licensed financial or tax professionals for personalized guidance when appropriate. Researching potential established exchange options in advance, such as reputable banks with extensive experience in international foreign currency transactions, can provide immense peace of mind. Should a significant policy change begin to unfold, observers should anticipate a period of natural confusion in the early stages. Conflicting and unverified reports, processing delays across financial systems, and an inevitable surge of misinformation are all common characteristics during any major complex financial transition. Those who have prepared themselves both emotionally and practically will be the best positioned to navigate this uncertainty with calm and effectiveness, avoiding reactive decisions. A series of key, interconnected developments are fueling a cautious but distinct atmosphere of optimism regarding Iraq's underlying economic outlook as the country moves forward into the post-2025 horizon. Over the recent past, Iraq has made measurable institutional progress in stabilizing core economic indicators that, for decades, reflected deep structural weakness and chronic volatility. Inflation, while still sensitive to the fluctuations of global commodity prices and domestic supply dynamics, is being managed more effectively through demonstrably tighter monetary coordination and improved fiscal discipline from the government. Government revenues, derived predominantly from critical oil exports, are now reportedly being channeled with greater strategic attention toward methodical budget management, reducing outstanding debt obligations, and executing public sector reforms, which collectively reduce the systemic uncertainty that historically undermined international confidence. Beyond these core quantitative improvements, Iraq has also taken important steps to modernize its regulatory frameworks, significantly strengthen banking oversight, and improve compliance with complex international standards related to anti-money laundering, AML, and counter-terrorism financing, CTF. These reforms are not merely technical adjustments, they are powerful, essential signals to global markets that Iraq is serious about long-term credibility, transparency, and enduring stability. Equally consequential is the country's accelerating engagement with major international financial institutions, including the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. These relationships offer not only targeted financial support, but also crucial policy guidance and external validation of Iraq's economic direction. Such cooperation indicates a willingness to submit to expert external scrutiny, adopt global best practices, and integrate more fully and deeply into the structured global economic system. While profound challenges persist, including internal political fragmentation, massive infrastructure needs, and a heavy economic dependence on oil, these incremental and steady improvements collectively suggest that Iraq is deliberately laying essential foundational groundwork rather than pursuing short-sighted, temporary fixes. For long-term observers and potential investors, this broader economic context is vital because a currency's performance rarely improves in isolation. Fundamentally, a currency reflects broader market confidence in the quality of governance, the strength of national institutions, and the overall strategic direction of the economy. Central bank reforms specifically represent one of the most closely watched components of Iraq's overarching economic transformation, particularly for anyone focused on the future value and functional role of the Iraqi dinar. The Central Bank of Iraq has been increasingly focused on enhancing its institutional independence, aiming to effectively insulate core monetary policy from the short-term political pressures that have historically distorted decision-making and introduced instability. Strengthening internal governance structures, enhancing rigorous internal controls, and actively professionalizing leadership have all been part of this coordinated effort, signaling a clear shift towards recognizing and implementing globally accepted central banking norms. Transparency has also emerged as a continuous theme, characterized by clearer communication regarding major policy decisions, the management of foreign reserves, and the mechanisms used to control the exchange rate. These internal steps are absolutely critical for building fundamental trust, not only within the domestic economy but also among essential international counterparties, such as correspondent banks and foreign regulatory bodies. In conjunction with governance reforms, there is an ongoing and robust discussion about strategically modernizing Iraq's exchange rate regime and substantially improving the dinar's functionality and utility in complex cross-border transactions. Making a currency more globally accessible and easily tradable within the sophisticated global Forex markets requires significantly more than political will alone. It demands robust and reliable settlement systems, fully compliant infrastructure, and unwavering confidence that regulatory rules will be applied consistently and fairly. While achieving full, deep integration into global currency markets remains a complex and inevitably gradual process, even partial progress in this area can dramatically enhance market liquidity and help reduce the market distortions often caused by parallel unofficial currency markets. For those who have observed the dinar over many years, these reforms matter less for any immediate impact and more for what they fundamentally represent: an institutional commitment to long-term stability, predictability, and alignment with the global financial standards that form the bedrock of any credible international currency. Healthy, evidence-based skepticism remains not only appropriate but strategically essential when discussing any currency-related optimism, particularly in regions with complex and often turbulent political and economic histories. Speculation is, by its very definition, characterized by uncertainty and narratives driven purely by unverified hope or easily manipulated rue. More can lead directly to poor decision-making and significant financial loss. It is paramount to distinguish clearly between documented, verifiable reforms and the exaggerated, sensationalized claims that often promise dramatic outcomes without any credible, factual evidence to support them. Yet history simultaneously provides compelling examples that demonstrate profound national recovery is possible, even following periods of the most severe economic disruption. Kuwait's dinar is frequently and appropriately cited in this context. It suffered a total collapse and loss of credibility during the Gulf War, amidst occupation and conflict. However, following the nation's liberation, disciplined institutional rebuilding, and the determined restoration of sovereign authority, Kuwait successfully and strategically reinstated its currency at a remarkably strong valuation, backed by clear, decisive policy decisions and widespread international recognition. Iraq's current situation is distinct, and direct comparisons should be made with careful nuance. However, the Kuwaiti precedent illustrates a broader, hopeful principle that currencies ultimately reflect the state's capacity, governance quality, and fundamental economic health more than past trauma alone. A country that successfully emerges from prolonged conflict is not permanently defined by that traumatic experience if it undertakes sustained, credible reform. Still, optimism must always be proportional to the objective, verifiable evidence available. Iraq continues to face significant internal political divisions, persistent security concerns, and various external regional pressures that inherently complicate the pace and certainty of progress. Recognizing both the immense potential and the substantial realistic limitations allows observers and potential market participants to remain grounded, effectively avoiding the dangerous extremes of either blind optimism or absolute cynical dismissal. Even in the absence of a sudden, dramatic revaluation event, a significant number of analysts and economists discuss the high possibility of a gradual, managed appreciation through mechanisms such as a carefully managed float, or an eventual transition to a freer exchange regime. In this more sustainable scenario, the currency's fundamental value would adjust incrementally over time, based on actual market forces, the strength of the nation's foreign reserves, the balance of trade, and the policy credibility, rather than a single high-impact overnight event. This incremental approach is often considered more sustainable and structurally sound, as it allows both national institutions and the broader market to adapt steadily, while significantly reducing the economic shock that abrupt revaluations can generate. For long-term holders of the dinar, a path of gradual appreciation could still offer meaningful and substantial upside potential, particularly if it is concurrently accompanied by declining inflation rates, improved public access to the banking system, and greater international usage of the currency in trade. However, this path is inherently subject to volatility. Managed or free floats can experience unavoidable periods of retracement, speculative market pressure, and necessary policy intervention, all of which require significant, sustained patience and emotional discipline from market participants. Continuous education becomes paramount in this environment, understanding nuanced macroeconomic signals, deciphering central bank communications, and tracking global financial trends can help distinguish normal temporary market fluctuations from structural long-term shifts. Strategic thinking is also of major importance, which includes setting realistic expectations regarding potent IL timelines and achievable returns. Instead of focusing on single dramatic event narratives, a gradual appreciation framework encourages a more sensible long-term perspective that is fundamentally aligned with the reality of sustainable economic development rather than pure speculation. While such gradual outcomes are certainly never guaranteed, they align far more closely with how modern, non-commodity-backed currencies typically evolve and gain strength within an increasingly interconnected global system. Addressing the serious, darker side of currency speculation is an ethical imperative, particularly given the well-documented history of scams that have targeted individuals hoping for life-changing financial outcomes from the dinar. Fraudulent schemes consistently thrive in environments characterized by uncertainty, limited public information, and emotionally charged, hopeful narratives. In the specific case of the Iraqi dinar, scammers have historically promoted false guarantees of extraordinary exchange rates, claimed privileged, secret access to special redemption centers, or asserted unverified insider knowledge that is supposedly unavailable to the general public. These highly manipulative tactics fundamentally rely on manufactured urgency and secrecy, deliberately pressuring individuals to act quickly before they can verify basic facts. It is absolutely crucial to state unequivocally that legitimate major financial events never operate in this clandestine manner. Significant currency adjustments, if and when they occur, are processed transparently through established regulated national and international banking systems, publicly announced regulated exchanges, and well-defined policy frameworks. They do not, under any circumstances, require upfront fees, private invitations, or the use of unverified, self-proclaimed intermediaries. Regulatory oversight. Mandatory identity verification and adherence to strict compliance procedures would almost certainly be involved, especially in jurisdictions with robust financial controls. Understanding these fundamental realities is the first step for individuals to protect themselves from financial exploitation. Avoiding all unsolicited emails, unverified social media promotions, and unlicensed currency dealers is a basic, yet critically important, safeguard. While maintaining a level of skepticism may temper the emotional excitement, it dramatically increases financial safety and ensures that decisions are based on verifiable, credible information, rather than manipulative pressure or the fear of missing out on a perceived secret opportunity. Strategic preparation plays a pivotal role in effectively reducing stress and uncertainty should any future adjustment to the Iraqi dinar occur, whether the change is incremental or substantially dramatic. One practical, often overlooked step is meticulous documentation. Maintaining clear, organized records of precisely when, where, and how any currency was acquired is crucial for compliance, verification, and fulfilling potential domestic and international tax reporting requirements. Receipts, original invoices, bank statements, or official written confirmations may all serve as valid evidence of legitimate acquisition, depending entirely on the individual's jurisdiction and local laws. Authentication of any physical notes held is another major consideration. Since counterfeit currency remains a risk in many global markets, ensuring that physical notes are genuine, completely undamaged, and stored securely can prevent substantial complications down the line. From a regulatory standpoint, any formal exchange process would very likely involve stringent identity verification and adherence to global anti-money laundering (AML) standards. Making early preparedness absolutely essential. Taxes represent another area where foresight is vital. Currency gains, if realized and substantial, may be subject to capital gains or income tax, depending heavily on the specific local laws and the holding period. Consulting with a licensed tax professional well in advance can help individuals avoid costly and overwhelming financial surprises. Preparation does not mean assuming with certainty that an event will occur. Rather, it reflects prudent, disciplined planning for navigating multiple potential outcomes. By proactively organizing all necessary documentation and understanding the basic compliance requirements early, individuals effectively position themselves to respond calmly and efficiently, instead of facing a panicked scramble during periods of inevitable, heightened uncertainty. Equally important as external preparedness is establishing a clear internal personal plan. If the value of dinar holdings were to suddenly increase, how would an individual rationally and strategically respond? Would the first and highest priority be the elimination of all outstanding debt, such as mortgages, loans, or high-interest credit obligations that quietly drain long-term wealth? Would the focus instead be on investing deliberately into diversified assets that are designed to generate steady income and preserve capital over a long-time horizon? Perhaps the priority would be building a robust savings foundation, securing essential emergency reserves, or funding crucial education and family needs. Others might consider the long-term steps of establishing trusts, implementing sophisticated wealth preservation strategies, or initiating philanthropic efforts. Each of these options carries distinct tax, legal, and emotional implications, and failing to comprehensively consider them in advance significantly increases the risk of impulsive, emotionally driven decisions under pressure. Sudden, major financial change can be profoundly overwhelming, even when the change is positive. Without a pre-established plan, people often react defensively instead of responding proactively and strategically. Thoughtful preparation effectively transforms periods of external uncertainty into internal confidence. It allows individuals to move deliberately and with intention rather than hastily, ensuring their actions are aligned with their core values and long-term goals, rather than short-term excitement or panic. In this sense, The very act of disciplined planning is an investment in itself, one that strengthens financial discipline, drastically reduces anxiety, and reinforces the fundamental understanding that significant financial opportunities are always best handled with clear, rational intention rather than volatile emotion. For many long-term Dinar holders, this journey has always transcended mere money, profit, or abstract numbers on a screen. It has represented a sustained measure of hope, profound perseverance, and an enduring belief in recovery, both on a personal level and for the Iraqi nation. Over many years, holders have faced intense skepticism from friends, outright ridicule from critics, and a constant drumbeat of doubt, amplified by misinformation, and repeatedly failed timelines. Yet many consciously chose disciplined patience over panic and conviction in their research over external noise. This sustained endurance carries deep emotional weight, a factor often underestimated by those who have not walked the same path. The passage of time itself becomes a form of capital, measured not just in years but in demonstrated discipline, strategic restraint, and resolute belief. If change does ultimately materialize, it will signify far more than simple financial gain. It will represent the validation of patience, emotional strength, and disciplined long-term thinking. For some, it may confirm a faith in fundamental research and economic principles. For others, it may simply affirm the profound value of staying steady and resolute under sustained pressure. This emotional component is fundamentally important because financial outcomes are always deeply intertwined with personal identity and lived experience. When people hold a speculative position through periods of extreme uncertainty, they are not merely holding physical currency, they are holding a complex personal narrative of resilience and persistence. Understanding this deep emotional significance ahead of time helps to ensure that any future success is processed thoughtfully, with humility and strategic clarity, rather than through an overwhelming emotional reaction. Major financial shifts rarely arrive with dramatic, attention-grabbing announcements or clear signals that are advertised to the public in advance. More often, they commence quietly, unfolding through detailed policy changes, institutional adjustments, and subtle market signals that quietly reward those who are paying close attention early in the process. History consistently shows that preparation invariably creates a strategic advantage, while purely emotional reactions tend to rapidly erode opportunity and capital. In moments of rapid, decisive change, emotional discipline effectively becomes a strategic asset, often as valuable as the capital itself. Those who have already asked the difficult questions, planned their potential responses, and clarified their priorities are significantly more likely to act with precision and clarity, rather than succumbing to panic. They are less likely to chase sensational headlines, make hurried, ill-advised decisions, or fall prey to external speculative pressure. Instead, they move deliberately, guided by pre-established frameworks and their long-term, articulated goals. Emotional discipline does not necessitate suppressing natural excitement or optimism. It means carefully controlling the timing, pace, and underlying intent of one's actions. Financial clarity is rarely, if ever, achieved in the heat of a moment. It must be deliberately built beforehand. By strategically separating emotion from the critical act of execution, individuals actively protect both their capital and their peace of mind. This vital distinction becomes particularly important during periods of high uncertainty, where verifiable information is often incomplete and outside opinions are loud and frequently conflicting. Those who prepared early are not rushed by a manufactured sense of urgency because they are already mentally positioned to strategically respond rather than simply react. As we bring this comprehensive update to its conclusion, the core message remains simple yet profoundly powerful: stay rigorously aware and stay strategically prepared. Currency revaluation, if it materializes, is not driven by mere hope or speculation alone, but by a confluence of powerful economic fundamentals, verifiable structural reform, sustained political stability, genuine international cooperation, and a clear, long-term strategic vision. Iraq continues the complex process of rebuilding essential infrastructure, modernizing its fundamental financial systems, and strengthening its working relationships with global institutions and key regional partners. These necessary processes inherently demand time, institutional patience, and coordinated effort, and they rarely follow the specific, publicized timelines or cycles of market speculation. While no specific outcome is guaranteed and no single development ensures a specific result, the overarching direction of progress appears increasingly structured, deliberate, and aligned with global standards. Awareness means maintaining continuous, informed attention without becoming consumed by market noise. Preparation means aligning realistic expectations with the verifiable reality, and ensuring personal readiness for a potential opportunity. Those who successfully combine both awareness and preparation are best positioned, regardless of the timing of any event. Ultimately, preparation is not about attempting to predict future outcomes. It is fundamentally about controlling one's personal and strategic responses to whatever may happen. Whether economic progress accelerates quickly or unfolds gradually over time, those who remain disciplined, rigorously informed, and intentional will possess the clarity to navigate change with confidence rather than paralyzing confusion. In uncertain environments, clarity of thought is a competitive advantage, and readiness is the only reliable foundation upon which sound financial decisions are ever made. If you have patiently held the Iraqi dinar, this is absolutely not the moment to disengage. It is the crucial time to sharpen your knowledge, meticulously organize your documentation, clearly define your strategic framework, and remain mentally grounded. Success in moments like these comes not from random luck, but from deliberate preparation, clarity of purpose, and unwavering discipline.